Hello fire signs Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. Welcome to the Taurus Lunar Eclipse. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Aries rising. Horoscope? Maybe. We'll see. I'm going to be talking about the final lunar eclipse in Taurus that's happening on Sunday the 29th of October at 7:24 a.m. if you're using Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And it's taken me a process, putting my makeup on, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off, until I found the moment where I could say anything. It's hard out there right now. First up, I love you. And I'm so sorry if you're in pain, if you're struggling with the amount of violence, hate, cruelty that's permeating the human species right now. I'm sorry if you're disappointed right now, Aries rising. I understand. And I have been thinking about this work during times of such crisis. I've been thinking about how this gives my life context, and how there's an ability to reflect and to sort of quieten the mind. When you come down to tarot, when you come down to astrology, and you start to find patterns, you start to find maybe a place for yourself in that pattern, if feeling powerless, if feeling desperate, if feeling alone. I hope that that's the way that the work is received, because it does feel sometimes quite irrelevant. Action is what we want to do, right, Aries rising? We want to help. We want to help shift this. We want to help shift this horror that seems to just be exploding everywhere. We've kept our chin up, we've kept our head clear, we've moved forward, we're doing our best. Sometimes it gets really difficult. Sometimes you can't help but get swamped by it. These eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio started in like November of 2021. So think about your sense of values, what you believe in, what you find worth in, and think about your obligations. Think about grief. Think about the horror of having to say goodbye to something that you love very dearly. Think about maybe the powerlessness that you've felt over this period of time, but think about how you've stood your ground anyway, and you've released what you cannot hold on to. The sun is at 5 degrees of Scorpio, so in that we talk about the 5 of Cups. We talk about wearing black. We talk about mourning. We talk about feeling the sadness, all of that great Scorpio stuff that they're so good at. That intensity of emotion. Maybe now is the moment to reflect and to, with sadness, say goodbye to what you can't hold on to any longer. Know that those 2 cups behind you are standing vigil, holding guard, waiting for when you're ready, which might not be now. The moon will be eclipsed at the 5 of Pentacles, 5 degrees of Taurus. This is one of the most difficult cards in the tarot. It's also one of the most important and most valuable. What do you see? It reminds me of subjugation. It reminds me of doors closing, of private clubs discluding folks in. In the foreground, one of them is wearing a bell around their neck, which in the old days they used to put bells around the necks of lepers so you know they were coming. Isn't that disgusting? The ways in which the human species can subdivide for power, for wealth. As you can see, the pentacles are making up a stained glass of a church, warm on the inside. Not all are welcome here, though. This card, when we relate it to ourselves, can be really difficult. When we think about our second house of our values, our coin, what we believe in, what we think is valuable, separate to capitalism, separate to this system that has been handed to us from birth that we're expected to slot into. If your cog doesn't fit into the machine, then out you go. What do you value, Aries rising, and what can you hold on to like a diamond in your back pocket? Or like a little pearl, a little rock, a pebble, a bit of rubbish. But what's precious to you? What have you learned about value in the last 2 years by way of having to let go of things that aren't yours anymore? What doorways have closed? And which windows have you climbed through? Mars has been in Scorpio since that last eclipse in Libra. Since all of the horrible stuff that has occurred in the last 2 weeks. Mars is the planet that rules Scorpio, though, and you. Mars helps you out, Aries rising. Mars helps you be strong, be brave, keep going. For Scorpio, Mars helps the passion, helps the sincerity, the intensity, the sexuality maybe. I know not everyone has one, and I fully respect that. And I know that it's a complex thing, complex dance to dance with one's sexuality. Some of us want to wear it like a shield, be proud, be brave, be demonstrative with it. For other people, it's very, very, very private. And unfortunately, when it's used as a chip in the game, subjugates some so others may prosper, it's really degrading. Since Mars has been in Scorpio, I've come back into some sense of relationship with my own. I put it down for ages, probably, let's face it, since these eclipses started. And that's the truth. But there are things that I'm not ashamed about myself. There are things that I'm not ashamed about of my body, the way that I express myself, the way that I'm read. It's less important to me now how I am read. It's less important to me now to prove that I'm a good person, despite the fact of this, that, or the other, because I'm also a naughty fairy. And so maybe you can feel that support from Mars in the 8th house of Scorpio. Contracts, grief, intensity, death, little death, ecstasy, pleasure. I've been thinking a lot about love making as an act of protest. I've been thinking about pleasure as an act of defiance through this language, through this shame, this heartbreak, this injustice. This injustice might be a story that we've got to get used to if we look to the astrology. But how are we going to work with that? How are we going to get back to the garden, get back to our body, get back to our core, our root? I'm privileged to be able to do this. I know that. I know that very sincerely. My values lay in this sort of work. They have done since I was a child. It took other folks to tell me that it was evil, that it was wrong, that it was disgusting, that I was ugly, for me to eventually believe that. But maybe now, I don't believe it anymore. Maybe now you don't either, Aries rising. Maybe you can work with your access to pleasure and to ecstasy. Maybe you can be brave with that. I'm going to get you some tarot, which I feel confident enough to do because it's not the eclipse. It's a week before. You'll do what you like on the eclipse, but I tell you what, if you want to retreat, if you want to stay inside, if you want to block it all out, then you got my permission to, babe. Mercury is in Scorpio too, and a day after this eclipse, Mercury, the planet that is attached to our voice, will conjoin Mars. So there's going to be more vitriol. There's going to be more words of stupidity being uttered. People will be talking before they think more. So protect yourself from that too. Use your shield. Use your shield. Take the sting out of your words if you can. Where are you going? You going on a trip? You going on a journey? Where are you going? Is enough enough? This feeling of being disempowered is enough for you. Or perhaps this feeling of being held in place, being strung up like the hanged man, the hanged one. Perhaps that bondage has really opened you up because I see that you're moving forward. You've got boundaries in place. You've got greater freedom of movement. You're riding a bike somewhere. You're keeping it moving. You've got to keep moving. I like that about you, Aries rising. Got to keep moving. Can't stop. Got to keep moving. Feels like you've been stopped for a while. And it feels like you're remembering something, maybe rose-tinted glasses, maybe a bit of nostalgia, but it feels like you're moving towards that, towards maybe a place in life or a place in your perception of yourself that was set down for a time. And you've needed that time to stop. You've needed that time to sort of regroup, recoup, or to make mistakes. Maybe it kind of feels like that too. You've made some mistakes, and that's all right. We all make them. But that option, that line of inquiry is sort of done with now. You've been working on your boundaries and you're moving away. There's a moth there too. You know, there was a moth that was caught in my shed out the back, my little studio space. I spent hours trying to get him out. I heard this tap, 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 tap from inside the window. Beautiful moth. I let the door open. Sort of tried to catch him with a cup and bring him outside, but he wasn't having it. He sort of hid from me for a while. So I opened the door and I turned the light off, and he found his way out by the light of the moon. Sometimes you need to let people find their own way. Sometimes you can't do it for them. Try as you might to want to help. Sometimes they've got to find the strength and courage enough to do it alone, because that changes them and that gives them confidence. Maybe confidence enough to meet you with yours. You're a good person, Aries rising, and you do so much for a lot of folks. That's what you value. I'm sorry that it's been difficult for you, babe, and I'm sorry that you've been feeling maybe a little bit alone lately. But like the moth, you found the way. You found the way out. That's your reading. Take it easy, Aries rising. I know I am. Let me read your birth chart. I'll do it at umaruby.com. You can book in a spot with me there. It's via Zoom, and I draw you one. They look like them. If you'd like to support my work here moving forward with these horoscopes, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. There's an option to subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month, or if you'd just like to throw some pennies in the tip jar, you can do that too. I'm going to be with you in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the new moon in Scorpio, and this will be the first new moon in Scorpio that we've had any say in since 2021. We'll think about your 8th house. We'll think about your contracts. We'll think about horror and death and grief. And we'll think about ecstasy. And we'll think about pleasure too. I love you, Aries rising. You take care. Hello, Leo rising. Well, this is maybe just a chat rather than a horoscope, but we'll see how we go. I'm growing strong again. This is for the Taurus lunar eclipse. It's happening on Sunday the 29th of October at 7:24 a.m. if you're using Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And it's going to finish up eclipse season for this year. It's also going to finish up a story that we've been reading since November of 2021, I would say, when the first eclipse in Taurus occurred. Over this time, Taurus and Scorpio has been without its power. And because you're a Leo rising, your soul center may have been in square or experiencing some tremors, some pressure, some aggravation at these eclipses during eclipse time. On your birth chart, we're talking about your most public self and your most private self, your legacy and your ancestors. And you. And that's a pretty difficult story to contend with, I might say, Leo rising. There's been things that have fallen off or revealed themselves or blown out or disappeared. And you've been holding tight to who it is that you are, but you must have been feeling those zaps every now and again. You must have been like, but I'm doing this for love, I'm doing this from my heart. Why is my private life and my public life so at odds with me? I feel like I'm not good enough or available enough for either. I'm too private publicly, or I'm too public privately. My ancestors are ashamed of me because of what I do in the public sphere. Or what I do in the public sphere doesn't include the secret parts of me that mean a lot to me. It doesn't feel secure up there at the moment. It doesn't feel secure down here in private though either. That's a lot to contend with. I understand it. We're kind of really holding a lot of grief right now, aren't we, Leo rising? The tarot explains it, so that's good. The sun is at 5 degrees of Scorpio at this eclipse. That's the 5 of Cups, so that's our grief card. And if the moon is at 5 degrees of Taurus at this eclipse, then that's the 5 of Pentacles. That's our "you're not welcome" card. It's sort of echoing throughout the world right now. And sometimes, I've put my makeup on, I've taken it off. I put it on, I've taken it off. Been trying to find the flow as to get these horoscopes or messages out to you during a time of such sadness and such horror, and amidst such stupidity as well. There are a lot of people saying some really unintelligent things at present. I really resent what our information superhighway has become. I really do. I resent it. I can remember 10 years ago when it wasn't like this. I can remember when we didn't say on impulse, when we didn't read 2 sentences and think we knew everything about this topic and then put our opinion forward, when our minds were pitted against one another. I haven't seen propaganda like this in my lifetime until now. I read about it. I read about it a lot when I was younger. I was quite focused in on sort of wartime, Second World War history. I was really interested in it and flabbergasted at the result of hatred. I can't believe what's going on now. I really can't. Maybe that's the sort of soul center for you, Leo rising. Maybe you're sort of like, I'm supposed to be a lion and I'm scared shitless. That could be something that you're feeling too, babe. And if that is, that's okay. The sun moves you around. The sun we follow for you, Leo rising. Wherever the sun is, that's your guiding light. For all of us, the sun is the brightest, most obvious part of ourselves. It's the part where we're most useful, the most seen. That's your soul's candle. Big, bright, bold, adventurous. So on that principle, honey, the sun is in Scorpio at this eclipse. Scorpio is intense, fixed ice, depth of emotion beneath that ice. Scorpio is also really sexy too, I've got to say. Mars has entered Scorpio. They've been there since the last eclipse. And in the way that Mars is the ruler or leader of Aries, so too for Scorpio in a very different way. In Aries, we learn to be brave. In Aries, we learn to lead. In Scorpio, we learn to feel. With Mars there and Mercury, there might be some more things that are said through anger. But I'd like for you to separate that, or maybe channel, harness that, and turn it into something that speaks to magic rather than violence. This is very private work for you, Leo, because this is 4th house, privacy, home, ancestry. This is a place where Mars might have you at odds with folks that are included in that bloodline. This might be something around angry words in private. So protect yourself with that shield that Mars can provide. Protect yourself with your empathy, your kindness, your gentleness. It must be really difficult to have these eclipses fritzing out the power, public and private, and me. Who am I? What am I supposed to do now? All of this stuff is expected of me, and I just don't even, it's not me. This is me, and I'm have been told that I should be ashamed of that. It's a terrible thing to feel voiceless, isn't it? It's a terrible thing to feel that you mustn't say what's on your mind, or you mustn't share the truth of who you are. When I look at the 5 of Pentacles, I identify with these folks here. Not with what's behind the green curtain, behind the stained glass, behind those bricks. One of these folks has a bell around their neck. It's the leper. They used to put a bell around their neck so you'd know they were coming. Isn't that disgusting? We're talking about your 4th house, your ancestry, your home environment, a place of nurturing and a place of comfort and privacy. And if that has been difficult for you to ascertain, if that has been somewhere that has been shaky, if you've been left out of that place and you've had to build it your own, I empathize with you, honey. There's a lot of us with that bell around our neck. We want to be wild, we want to be free spirit, move around, pack light, travel light. So I tell myself all the time, it hurts to be unwelcome. It hurts to be unsafe. It hurts to be shut out. It hurts to receive love on condition of you editing yourself. Not that bit. Not that bit. Majority rules. I'm going to get you some tarot, I think, Leo rising. I can, because I'm recording this in the eye of the storm before the last eclipse. When it comes to that eclipse, I think I'll be in bed. I'll be honest with you. But let's see what tarot says. Jupiter is up in Taurus too, at this eclipse. At 11 degrees retrograde, they'll be in opposition exactly with Mars. I kind of like that. There might be something in your public world that's having its moment. Maybe I would probably suggest maybe not at the eclipse to action it, but that feels like a nice offering of support. Jupiter's encouraging. Jupiter's really optimistic. Jupiter's really inquisitive. And so an opposition between Jupiter and Mars feels like bravery to me. It feels like hope to me. It feels like faith. When the World card comes out in a reading, Leo rising, there's many different ways to read it. My tarot teacher always tells me it's saying well done. It's like a standing ovation, a round of applause. That was really difficult, and there was a lot of deception and lies, and perhaps you were telling yourself lies too throughout this process. But the world is saying, well done. Not you passed the test. I don't believe in that bullshit. But it's saying you understand. You understand. I think that I can, from this moment, there's someone that's been waiting sort of quietly and patiently, and because of this point of understanding about yourself, or this moment of like freedom, the swords are so sharp and they can really cause such damage to our heart, to our mind, to our soul, you know. We can think anything away. We can limit ourselves by our thoughts. We can limit our reality by our thoughts. We can also be led up the garden path too. Some people lie. It's all right. It's their problem. They can't lie forever. Have you been telling yourself lies, Leo rising? Have you been told lies that you've taken for truth? Well, Taurus saying, nah, well done. You understand. You understand, babe. In some versions of tarot, this figure here, well, in fact, all of them, I might say, but there's always a little modesty ribbon that's sort of swirling around the figure. Oftentimes, in some of the original forms of the deck, it's a beautiful, beautiful androgyne. Both feminine and masculine. You can see that sort of beautiful culmination that deserves a round of applause. I am both. I am both. That's a mountain that we're all climbing, I think. Some of us are more conscious of it than others. Check out the World card. Do some little hunting for different versions of it. It's the most beautiful image. perfection, breasts and a penis. Stunning. Heavenly. And now we start to sow those seeds. You're working with someone really reliable, very slow. Maybe you've been waiting to hear from them for some time, but they're on the way. They're on the way. They want to work on this with you, and they're not going anywhere too. You can count on them. So whatever this last eclipse brings up for you, Leo rising, whatever it says to you, whatever it reveals, whatever shedding has to occur, whatever mask off, that's probably a really, really great way to describe this last eclipse for you, Leo rising. It's a mask off moment. Private, public, self, private, public, self, private, public, self. Mars in Scorpio is really sexy too, FYI. If that's helpful, at all, if that aligns with your feeling in your body right now. And sexuality as gender is different for everyone. It's an endless spectrum, array of colours to that. Sometimes when Mars is in Scorpio, it's coming from the root, the base. I used to be a go-go dancer for a long time, long time, and I used to dance from my root chakra. You don't know what you've got till it's gone, right? Maybe it's time for me to start dancing again. Private, public, self, private, public, self. I hope that was something for you, Leo rising. I hope that this little moment together can give you that chance to cool it a little bit, to turn down the noise. I know it's noisy, and I know we must be aware, and we must be conscious and activated. Feel it, feel it, feel it, feel it. Let me read your birth chart. You can head to umaruby.com and I'll draw you one up. They look like that. And we can have a chat via Zoom, and I'll post it to you when we're finished. So you'll have a hard copy, a drawing from me. If you'd like to support this work, my horoscopes, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and there's an option to subscribe there. I think it's $10 a month, Australian dollars. Or if you'd just like to throw some money in the tip jar, you can do that there as well. I'm going to be with you in 2 weeks, and we're going to speak about a new moon in Scorpio. We're going to speak about a night that we have magical access to Scorpio, where we have magical access to your ancestors, where we have magical access to your sense of private world. Fly, 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 fairy. I'll see you then. Hello, Sagittarius rising. We're going to talk about the final lunar eclipse in Taurus that's coming up for us on the 29th of October, which is a Sunday at 7:24 a.m. if you're using Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And we're in the thick of it now as I'm recording this. We're mid-process through these eclipses, and I imagine that there is a lot of grief that we're going to be working with moving forward. And just in this moment right now, I've put my makeup on, and I took it off, and I put it on, and I took it off, and I had to wait for the wind outside, which is picked up and blowing things around before I could find the confidence to sit down and offer these readings during a time of such sadness, such loss. There's a pain that feels quite palpable in the air right now. The air is thick with it. People are frightened. People are in crisis. And at times like this, I found it maybe a little bit difficult to find the context for why astrology means what it does to me. I've had to re-remember the system. I've had to re-remember the point of the exercise during this time. Predictions and things like that kind of feel a bit useless when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the bog, when horrible things occur and the pain of others is so real. Sometimes you can think to yourself, well, what's the point in seeing it here? I can feel it here. I remember that I do this work because it gives me purpose. It gives me context for my own life and a place where I feel that I belong in the galaxy during a time when powerlessness is the driving force. On that idea, if we were to read the sky with tarot right now at this eclipse, the sun would be at 5 degrees of Scorpio, and the 5 of Cups is the card that we talk about in that space and time. We know how important it is to wear our black, to clutch our rosary, and to howl in sadness and in sorrow at what has been lost, what potential has been taken away, what final judgment has been landing. We can feel the comfort on our back, the support of those 2 cups that still remain, and they'll be there for us. They'll be ready for us to use and to drink from when the time is right. But now, maybe it's just grief. The moon at 5 degrees of Taurus speaks to the 5 of Pentacles. It's a terrible feeling to feel shut out, to feel uncounted, to feel that your voice is not welcome or it's not been heard. The pentacles form the stained glass of a church, and the 2 figures in the front are the ones that I identify with. One of them has a bell around their neck. They used to do that to lepers to let you know they were coming. Separatism, segregation, subjugation, that terrible feeling of not having anything and not knowing where to look for sustenance or for sanctuary. These 2 aren't invited into the church for sanctuary. They're not allowed. And so our hearts are with them at this time. We can see ourselves in them too, can't we? We remember times gone by when we were the ones that weren't invited, that were shut out. And it hurts. So these 2 cards together, that hurts. For you, Sagittarius rising, since November of 2021, there's been limited access or limited autonomy, perhaps, around your body, your health, and maybe around your psychology too, around the secret hidden world, the private work that you do. Perhaps there's been feelings of loss or worry or fear around those two parts of yourself. But I will remind you that you're here right now, and that the work that maybe the 6th house, your Taurus house, the repetition that you've had to maintain in order to keep your center, to keep your feet on the ground, to keep you here. Now, at this final Taurus eclipse, we can reflect, we can look back, we can hug ourselves, we can feel our body. And we can remember that we're alive. The tragedy of the current moment has its effect over the physical self. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get locked in here, can't move, trapped. Sometimes there's two of me. I dissociate to a point where my mind is calling the shots over here somewhere, and my body can't even feel it. It's not happening to me now. I feel everything. I feel the presence of Mars in Scorpio too. Mars has been in Scorpio since the last eclipse in Libra, since the injustice that time showed us. Mars is great help for Scorpio. Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. Mars, wearing the costume of Scorpio, speaks to passion. It speaks to sexual energy. Like our genders, our sexualities are many varied. Some people have a relationship with theirs, some people don't. Some people have one, some people don't. When I think about the hidden work of the 12th house where Scorpio is, where Mars is, I think about feelings of reclamation. If we can use the shield of Mars, and we can think about our private work, our private world, our psychology, what we're coming to terms with, grips with, friends with, when we can start to feel the different houses of our body too. If we think of Scorpio, we think of our genitals, we think of our root, we think of red. There's a lot of artists that I admire that use their root chakra, if you like. They use their base as their power. I used to be a go-go dancer too, so I used to do the same thing. I'm realizing now that that was magical, that the energy that I was able to store and release through my work was valuable. For a long time I didn't value it. But in a shock to the system such as now, I remember the power of the body. I remember the relationship that I have with my body. I remember the relationship that I have with my body that speaks to my hidden work, my essence, my spirituality. I'm kind of calling it at this time, I think, Sagittarius rising. One of my best friends, Max Bookbinder, says to me, our existence is an act of resistance. And we put our 2 feet on the ground and we say, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. Me too. Black Lives Matter. We're not going anywhere. You can't make us. Feel strong. Feel ready. There's going to be some more stupid stuff that is said. I guarantee it, unfortunately. But that's all right. A day or two after this eclipse, Mercury, our voice box, will meet up with Mars. So words will have a sting in their tail. There might be an attack. If that's coming from your 12th house, if that's coming from you to you, your internal workings, if you're berating yourself, I want you to remember what I'm saying. And I want you to remember that sometimes we lie to ourselves to protect us. And sometimes we say things and think things about ourselves that we would never in a million years put to anybody else. You are real and you are welcome here, Sagittarius rising. I'm going to get a couple of tarot cards because we're in the eye of the storm now. I'm recording these mid-eclipse season, so the rug might not be pulled out from under us, although we'll see. The moon, wild child, fox, wolf, wild animal, untamed, smells of fur, claws and teeth. Puppy dog, good boy, good girl. That's it. Stay, sit, beg. They're both in us. Page of Wands, Page of Swords, child of truth, child of magic. The moon moves us. We know this now. We've been doing this for long enough. The moon reveals things at night. Some of the darker recesses feel comfortable and feel safe by the moon's light. Some of the creatures only come out to play by the light of the moon. Are you going to do what you're told? Or are you going to do what you want? We're both of these things. We are everything and we are nothing. Wolf, fox, puppy dog, good boy. Which one's going to come out for you at this moon? Keep all of that in mind if you intend to socialize or hang out or get amongst it at the eclipse. The night before, Saturday the 28th, might be pretty intense, so go with how you feel. You don't have to listen to me. I'm not asking you to be a good boy, good girl. Do what you feel. Feel it though. Feel it in the body. That's it, Sagittarius rising. Hectic. It's the last one too. There won't be another lunar eclipse in Taurus near the Dragon's Head for another 20 years, so congratulate yourself. You've done really well against all odds. Let me read your birth chart if you like. You can head to umaruby.com and I'll draw you one. They look like that. And I'll read it to you and then post it to you. You can pop some tip money in the jar at buymeacoffee.com if you like. There's also an option there to subscribe. So it's 10 Australian dollars a month, I think. And you can subscribe to this work. And that would be appreciated. It's also not essential. I understand that money is tight for everyone. Let's speak again in 2 weeks. I'll be back with you for a new moon in Scorpio. So after such a long time, after 2 years, there'll be an evening where we get to make magic in your hidden world, your private world. It's going to be good. I'll speak to you then.